Welcome, committee members and members of the public. Thank you for your patience this morning while we have worked our way through some technical difficulties. Please ensure that your devices or cell phones are either switched off or on silent mode once this meeting is in progress. If a cell phone interrupts the course of the meeting, we will stop and wait for the device to be muted. This meeting is being held in the supper room of the Waihinga Centre at the Martin Barons Garden. Unfortunately, we are not live streaming this morning due to technical difficulties, but the meeting is being recorded and will be available to view on Council's YouTube channel. The emergency exits for this room are the door that you've come in and the exit behind me. If we do need to evacuate the building, please use one of these exits and assemble outside by the playground. Please remain at the assembly area until the building has been confirmed clear. In the event that we experience any unruly or intimidating behaviour from members of the public during the course of the meeting, we will adjourn until it is safe for us to reconvene. Members of the committee and staff will congregate in the office behind me if this action is necessary, but as always, I hope it isn't. We will start the meeting with our opening karakia, which is on the wall, so I invite everyone to stand and join me.
Kia ora te marino, kia whakapapa pauna, te moana. Hei huarahi mā tātou, e te rangi nei, aroha atu, aroha mai, tātou ia tātou katoa, hui e tai ki e.
Kia ora, thank you. We do have some apologies this morning. So we have Councillor Bosley and Councillor Elams who are unable to join us, and Violet who will be late. Do I have a councillor to accept? Thank you, Councillor Plimmer and Councillor Oles to second. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. All those against, no. The motion is carried. Do we have any conflicts of interest to declare this morning? That being the case, we will move on to the first of our submissions. The first we have is Robert Perry Cameron. If you could join us at the front, Robert, and you with us.
Perry, he's not here. No, he's not here.
In that case, Lynn Bushell from the Cobblestones Museum. And if you've got other people to support you, they're welcome to join you as well. Wonderful. So Lynn's submission is located page 137 of pack 3. Yep. Lynn, you've been allocated 10 minutes to present to members of the committee. It is suggested that you make your presentation during the first 5 or 6 minutes, and that will allow 3 or 4 minutes at the end for members to ask you questions. Your allocated time includes both your presentation time and questions from councillors. So when you're ready, take it away.
Thank you. My name is Lynn Bushell, Chair of the Cobblestones Trust. And I have with me today Thea Barton, who is the New South Wairangi District Council representative, and Joseph Giller, who is our exhibitions manager, and Graham, who's just sitting back there, is our operations project manager, and Frank Stalwart. So we are approaching the council and making submission to the council, first of all, to support the idea of having greater external funding for organisations. We would ask the council to consider a cultural and heritage fund for various organisations in this area, and particularly to help them with operational expenditure. We would ask the council to acknowledge the heritage and visitor attraction that Cobblestones is, and the fact that it is an identity in its own right now after 50 years, and that we would be seeking something in the round of 25,000 per annum, preferably on a longer term rather than year to year basis. The reason for this is that many grants and funders today have moved away from being able to help with operational expenditure into social, environmental, sustainability funding for organisations. And that community donations are wonderful, and we do appreciate what council gives us and what our community, and how much our community does support us. But it is very much a fickle thing in that it can fluctuate due to economic and political pressures of the time. Claire.
If we can flick Amy through to the next slide, that would be helpful. Thank you. So we have been really deliberate around making sure that our vision is something that pops. We've even had Richard Taylor come recently to the board to help us kind of give that pop. So we're about making sure that heritage is coming to life. And I've recently come to Greytown, well, probably about a year and a bit ago. And I remember coming to Cobblestone some 30 years plus ago. And in that time, I've seen significant strides in terms of what they're doing. And for those of you that haven't been, I encourage you all to go. I think it's iconic for Greytown and wider South Warwick district. And if we can go through to the next slide, please. So the value, what we set out there are some numbers for you to consider. So 41% of our visitors come from elsewhere in New Zealand. It's showing that we are unique and we are an attraction in our own rights. There were 8,000 plus visitors in 2024, and we've got 11% of our numbers including international visitors. We're getting excellent feedback from those visitors, and we'll come in a minute to what the risks are around it. So I'll just stop for a minute. I know my voice isn't that loud. We'll come to a minute into describing there are some risks if we end up having to do some things that we really, really don't want to do. And could you move through to the next slide, please? So our challenge, as Lynn has alluded to, we can get capital investment. That hasn't been an issue. You'll be aware at the moment that the two sheds are going in great leaps and bounds in terms of their development. The issue that we really are fundamentally having is around operational costs. We've minimised those costs as much as we possibly can. And I'm going to go through what we have done in a minute, and then Lynn's going to wrap this up. But essentially, there was an administrative oversight in 2024. We had anticipated that we would have 25,000 from the council to assist. So that we had budgeted for. For various reasons, we didn't put in the applications that we needed to do, and we're now in a hole for this financial year, and we anticipate that that will be for the next financial year to the tune of approximately $25,000. Thanks, Amy.
So what we are doing, just trying to see, I can't quite see that. Just see yours. Can't read that from here, even with my glasses on. So what we've done is we've reviewed and reduced all our costs and income as far as we can. Sometimes our might look really quite healthy, but most of the money that we have is for capital expenditure on the two sheds. And that is all put aside because it's grants and donations money. What we've done, we've increased our charges coming through the door to try and pick it up, because that's where we get most of our funding from. If we don't have other base things, it's really through the gate takings that we get a lot of our things. We do have friends who do some fundraising, but as most of you will know, and what is about to happen here, that the weather can just wipe out any gains we were hoping to get. So we've managed to limp along at the moment, but we are really, really tight at the moment. We continually are seeking new income streams. One of the things that we are now doing with the new two sheds is bringing online a multi-purpose space so we can use the museum as a venue. And we've always had a policy in the past that we would never close. we've had to change now and do that. So we're going to close the whole site down because it's the only way we can make headway, basically. Yeah.
Only other thing I thought. So before Linda sorts out the request, we're facing increasing costs across the board. So our insurance has gone up considerably over this year, and we anticipate the same the next financial year. That has gone up by the quantum of about 19%. We anticipate the rates will be going up, but we pay to the council, and also our electricity costs are significant as well. So one of the things that we have thought, but this is where we're going in terms of not wanting to do it, is we might have to close for certain days of the week to reduce our one part-time administrator costs. But again, that will hit us in the pocket because we're then not open for business. So we're trying in terms of thinking about options for meeting the shortfall.
Yeah, the other area is if we have to raise our funds, there's a sweet point where if we raise the admission rates too high, we actually start losing people. So being able to have enough to keep us going with their operations, and this means that they're not having to bring money in from other areas or rob other areas, which would actually go towards preservation and things like that, just to try and keep ourselves open. So that's the nutshell of what we face if we cannot find funding anywhere. At the moment, the Ministry of Culture and Heritage Fund has closed down. Masterton Council did not support us. Again, they've withdrawn their funding. So our only other outside operational funding that we have at the moment is support from this council and some support from the Carterton District Council as well. And everywhere else that we're going, so much of the investment, as I said, is going towards social, environmental and sustainable funding. So we support the council wanting to help us to look for external funding, but be aware that we definitely are doing everything that we can to keep those doors open.
So 30 seconds for one question.
I just have a quick question. One is the arrangement with Great Yarra District Trust Lands Trust. Is all that business sorted now?
Absolutely.
Yeah, so you're operating under a sort of peppercorn rental.
We wouldn't be here if that had not happened.
Yeah, and I just have one other thing. I guess just some clarity, because I know over the years in my term on council, we've always supported cobblestones, and in those, I guess during the construction of the new building in particular, this council contributed quite a substantial amount of money to get you off the ground. And we were sort of informed at the time that that would sort of be all that was required, and that the revenue would support the organisation moving forward. Obviously, things have changed, and that's
We changed. In actual fact, there was a $5,000 increase in our rates. There was a $5,000 increase in our insurance, and that you add that on top of the 21,000. You can start to see how we've had to tighten belts. So.
Yeah.
So if the council could consider, and we think it's not only just for us, but there are other organisations out there as well in the culture and heritage area.
Right, thank you very much. No,
Yeah,
sorry,
thanks.
that was
Yeah.
time. Thank you for your submission, and it will be considered as part of deliberations. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Michelle Dawson. Agenda page number 145.
Sorry, I didn't get Michelle from Shelton.
Michelle, yes.
So I've got hearing aids, so when people speak to me, I prefer a bit of volume, and I'll have to as much.
One thing I didn't mention for the cobblestone speakers is when you get to 9 minutes, Amy will raise her hand. So just keep an eye out for that to know that you're coming to the end of your time.
I'm still going to introduce myself properly first of all. So I'm Michelle Dawson. I'm the owner of the Greyfriars Motel business. But my background is 20 years working for councils as sustainability and energy manager. So most of my time I spent with Waitakere City Council and Auckland Council. Auckland Council, I managed a $10 million electricity and gas budget and $4 million water budget. So that includes water and wastewater, and that's relevant to my second topic I'm going to bring up today. The first one I really wanted to note, as per my submission, is around the alternate ways to distribute rates, about having a urban service charge. I believe if you're proposing to do that, then you need to also have a rural service charge, because there are things that rural services use that the town and people in the villages don't use. There's things that the rural people don't use in the village as you're proposing. If you're going to do one charge, you need to be balanced and do the other charge. Or we pretend that we're a whole community and we share the total cost. So you can't have one charge without the other. So my recommendation there is to, if you're going to develop a urban service charge, then you need to develop a rural service charge, because you do coastal restoration, planting and other things like that that aren't immediate benefit. You've got to be equitable on both sides. The main topic that I've actually come for today to speak to my submission, because the rest you can just read, is around the SUIP concept, the separately used or inhabited part. And with me in support, I've got Ursula from the Greytown Hotel, who's got the hand up. I've got Murray from Oak Estate in Greytown, and Lynn from the Whitesmith was hoping to be here as well. The other hotels and motels in Martinborough and Featherston are impacted in the same way. I'm representing their interest on their behalf without them necessarily agreeing, but they're impacted in the same way. At the moment, for example, Greyfriars Motel has got 15 rooms and we've been charged for 15 SUIPs. The White Swan has 13 rooms and they've been charged for 16, which is making me think the restaurant and bar have got additional charging on top of that. Oak Estate have been charged 13 SUIPs for 13 rooms, and the Greytown are being charged 7 for 6 rooms, and they also have a bar. Just to note, Greytown Hotel has a shared bathroom. It's not individual bathrooms per room. Now, the reason why we say that is not equitable is our guests are there short term. They're there to maybe make a cup of tea, have a shower, use the toilet. They're certainly not living there long term. They don't have their weekly load of clothing to wash, their weekly load of sheets, their weekly load of towels. You get the odd person who wants to do a little bit of travel clothing. For the most part, all the motels, hotels, so White Swan sends everything out. The rest of us send sheets out to be externally washed. At Greyfriars Motel, we choose to wash the towels and the pillowcases, but that's all. So to actually charge us 15 separately used or inhabited parts for wastewater, you're killing the goose that lays the golden eggs. If you don't have accommodation coming to Greytown, Featherston, you're not getting people visiting all the facilities out here. They're not going to be shopping at the shops. You're making life unbearable for us. And I don't think that was the intended consequence. I think what's happened is the blank rule has been applied across without thinking what the impact was. One would have thought that you would have looked at both ends of the extreme to actually see who was impacted and what that impact.
So could I be really rude here?
No.
I need to ask, what do you want us to do?
It's fine.
It's really important.
Formal recommendation.
Just let our people speak.
I know, I just need to get.
Yeah.
Recommendation. So if you understand that we are not 15 separate houses on the site of Greyfriars Motel, 13 for Oak Estate, etc., my formal recommendation is that you change the SUIP count for motels and hotels, so I'm being very specific, to 25% of the total room facility count. Now that would be a more accurate usage of water and wastewater. So what water we get charged 1 SUIP, wastewater for Greyfriars we get charged 15 SUIPs. It's not equitable. I don't think that was ever the intention, and financially, I can't live on $150 a week over winter, and that's the impact this is actually going. all the other motels, we've gone from being 70% of an annual average after COVID, when people were travelling internally, to 55% occupancy during these very rough times because of cost of living, global financial crisis, and now the 3,000 layoffs from central government in Wellington. And trying to find the money for wastewater that we're not using is actually putting a huge financial strain on all of us. That was not what the intention was. As I said, I used to manage $4 million worth of water and wastewater. I used to have to weed out where irrigation was being charged for wastewater. Irrigation doesn't use wastewater. We as motels are certainly not using the amount of wastewater that we're being charged for. So that's my formal recommendation. I have it written down if you need the wording. And I believe you would agree with me that 25% would be a much more equitable solution for all of us.
Thank you, Michelle. Great presentation.
Can we get a copy of,
Yes,
we get,
we grab
Yeah.
a copy. I've written down what you said, but if we could grab a copy,
Yeah.
that would be fantastic.
Yeah.
Notes that I'm willing to.
We'll take all of those, and as I said
Yeah.
earlier, that forms part of the deliberation process, and that's to come.
Yeah, and have a conversation afterwards we needed to help people understand the impact.
excellent, thank you.
Thanks, Michelle.
We've got 3 minutes. Have we got any further
I just want
questions?
to make the point.
So nice and loud. Yeah.
Thank you very much, because it's so important. And for everybody who's presenting, it's really important that you tell us what you're here to ask for, as because the solution that you're presenting is what is really important, because we do understand the background to
Oh,
all this. Yeah. So,
I
but it is so important, and everybody else presenting today, it's so important that you actually say, what is the remedy you're after? Because otherwise we're getting one side of it. The remedy is the really.
Any questions?
Thank you. Thank you.
Any further questions for Michelle? Or, no? Thank you. It was a very clear and concise.
Yeah, thank you.
I was recently talking with somebody.
I'm really sorry, but we can only take presentations from those who are registered. Sorry. Right, moving along, we're now moving to the Wairarapa Dark Sky. Thank you very much.
Page,
So that is page 388 of page 7.
Email. I'm loving it. I'm loving it.
I know, sure, that's the one.
Yeah.
Here's the head scissors. We got.
That's Amy. That's Amy.
Okay, thank you very much. So as per the previous speakers, you have 10 minutes and we'll give you a wee signal, maybe. We'll give you a wee signal when you get going. And yeah, we will listen intently until such times as you're finished.
Oh, all right, that's nice.
Kia ora everyone, councillors, and I think Martin's tucked away there. Yes, me and Martin's tucked away over there. So thank you for the opportunity to for us to present our submission today. I'm Huvnakia, Chair of the Wairarapa Dark Sky Reserve Association, and Charlotte Harding, our coordinator. So Wairarapa Dark Sky Reserve Association would really like to sincerely thank South Wairarapa District Council for the continued support you have given to ensure the Wairarapa Dark Sky is preserved and enhanced. South Wairarapa has provided funding and in-kind help, ensuring the reserve status is maintained, and we explain that in our submission. For an example, signage was a criteria that we had to meet for our reserve status, and the new signs you may have seen at the top of the hill and at Carleton boundaries, the new welcome signs have been now installed after a lot of hard work, and these were especially from some of the South Wairarapa District Council staff, so thank you. And also just on the Kakik Observatory, just the South Wairaupa's plan and continual work towards preserving and protection of that observatory. So I'll just wind up there and hand over to Charlotte. We're going to be hopefully very quick, so you've got some questions.
Kia ora. As Bevan mentioned, I'm Charlotte Polly and I'm the coordinator who's had the pleasure of working for the Dark Sky Association for a number of years now. And it's clear to see the impact stakeholders such as yourselves have had in the past 3 years as we have an accredited Dark Sky Reserve. Since designation, the association has restructured its focus to maintain status by monitoring education and raising awareness through ongoing engagement to align with the annual Dark Sky International reporting requirements. If you'd like a copy of our newly structured roles and responsibilities, we can get that to you. We're also supporting the second phase to extend the reserve to include Masterton District, so the whole of the Wairarapa region is covered. What the reserve status brought was an opportunity that the region is still yet to tap into fully. However, with the work of the association and the newly formed steering group, we're now pulling together projects and aspirations to create a pathway to achieve reaching that potential. The submission before you is to support driving both elements. Having previously had an MOU to support funding, 5,000 per year, which has been the catalyst from both South Wairarapa District Council and Carterton District Council in the former 3 years to support the coordination role, which is me having a small paid capacity. That is for 7 hours a week, or has been in the previous 3 years. But the potential that this now puts forward is a need to grow the capacity to drive the projects. Else you fall back on relying on a volunteer group, and as beautiful as volunteer groups are, and the region runs on them a lot, having paid support means things move quicker. So the submission before you, to be very clear, as Alistair mentioned before, is to support financially us achieving a paid position, growing the capacity from 7 hours a week to do all of the projects, and have paid capacity in both the association role but also the steering group role. So the association continue the work of maintaining the status that achieves us having the potential, and the steering group being able to drive the projects that tap into driving some of the things that we can start seeing gained from the Reserve Association. So it's achieving a bigger picture and ticking off projects which will achieve some great things. We've got, for example, a schools project that would be really simple to install through funding, both sort of achieving getting meters into schools that help us monitor the dark sky, plus bringing a STEM-based project to our children in the schools, which would be all through the South Wairarapa. The collective funding enables the coordinator role to drive both of these things, and we are looking for support here for a 2-year memorandum of understanding for the 10,000. We're asking for a 10,000 investment from each of the councils, and discussions have led to us to assume that Masterton District Council are very willing to come into this space as well, as they will be coming into the reserve. So this is split between the councils through the whole region. We'd like to add that enabling this to happen means we appreciate that we can't just keep coming back. So we will also look to create a funding strategy outside of this for all the projects that we would like to achieve. So there's lots of funding opportunities out in the world, but this one would enable us to have that capacity that's solid, and then we will go and seek funding for any projects within the steering group work stream, which you have a copy of. We've kept this pretty short this week because we prefer to answer questions from you guys, so you fully understand what this submission states.
That's how many minutes have we got? We've done about 4. So I'll start with a question. Your increased funding ask is across the 3 councils. How would your strategy have impacted if only 1 or 2 of the 3 councils met your increased requests?
It will all be about what the capacity can pay for. So we're on 7 hours of capacity at the moment, and that was based on 10,000 per annum combined. So yeah, we're hoping to grow. The aspiration was to grow from a 7-hour capacity to a 20 to 24-hour capacity, because we can see that the work is there. So it will all be about what we can achieve.
So it'd be a sliding scale.
It'll be a sliding scale, yeah. The capacity enables more hours to drive the project.
And I think the steering group plan, which you've got in the submission, which is all three councils, iwi, Business Wairarapa, Destination Wairarapa, Wellington NZ. Also, yeah, that is a whole, that this is what will be driving that extra need. And Charlotte is basically the what's your role in that?
Coordinator of both.
So,
Yeah, so all of the, I mean, the steering group work action plan that you've got a copy of, which is in its draft form at the moment, that encompasses all things and covers the steering group is all of the councils, all of those people. So we've got everything down and it would just be finding what's achievable on limited.
Councillor Old, Councillor Plummer.
Thank you. Hi, Viv. Speaking there. So just a quick question, point of clarification more than anything. In your request for funding, we request a combined total of $30,000 per annum for the 25-26 split equally between the three councils. But then with your presentation, you're talking about a MOU that would extend beyond that 25-26 period. Is that correct?
Yeah, well, the advice that we've been given is to do a 2-year MOU for you guys because everybody else is on annuals and then it will align in 2 years' time.
Okay.
Then we would come back,
Okay.
assess what we've achieved, where do we go next?
Yeah.
So we'd like the 2-year period to prove what we can do and then look forward in the future.
Okay. Thank you. I understand.
Thank you for that clarification. Councillor Plummer.
Yeah, thank you. Literally, you just opened the door to my question there. When you come back to us to say what you've achieved, how do you intend to measure the success of the Dark Skies in terms of, it's a tourism potential. So how do the money that we put in and the community put in, how are you going to measure success?
It is tricky. I've had conversations with each of the councils to report that they've not been too crash on, to be honest. But now we've been talking to both Wellington NZ and all three councils to get really clear on what is it you want from us as far as reporting, what is important to understand from you. So we're in a learning process on that, but we've been with Wellington NZ, we've got quite a clear format and we think we can replicate that for each council. And it will be about, you've got the action plan. These are the things we're achieving. These are whether it be education, with the association side, you've got education, maintaining, monitoring and the impact in that space. So we can look at what lighting has been changed, what groups we're impacting with DOC, the work we'll have with DOC. So you've got two different streams. The association element is quite specific.
They're all sort of costs though, aren't they? So I'm saying, if we, from an investor point of view, because that's what we are, we're going, okay, what's the return to our community in terms of revenue? And are we talking hotel nights? Are we talking business return? That's yeah, but that's the sort of thing that.
Yes.
The financial side is hard to measure and it's hard to get them to get quite specific numbers. We've known that for a long time. I think we just have to start looking at how, and that would be an evolving beast, how certain times of the year, Matariki, that the activities that go on and that we're involved in.
Let's take a measure it.
Sorry, that is time. So thank you very much for your presentation. Thank you for articulating your ask and for your time this morning. Come back to me.
Yeah.
Have a look at Tekapo, see how they measure that.
RTO, that is a lot of
a lot stronger.
data driven,
Yes.
huge. But we can
give you that.
thank you so much for the time.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah.
Right. Next presenter is representing the Martin Borough School Board of Trustees.
Page, sorry.
Page number 417, pack 21.
21.
What do you want to know?
Whatever.
Thanks for having us here. I know you guys have got a long day. I'm sure there'll be lots of submitters. I'll be fairly short because it's a fairly straightforward submission we made. Given the long-term plan was looking at questions on the sewer policy, we thought we'd shoehorn a submission in on the rates remission policy and discuss wastewater charges. So Martin School currently has 27 toilets, and because of this, we pay approximately $30,000 in rates, wastewater charges. In 2023, that was $22,000. So we've seen an increase of 36% in the last year because of increases from the council rating system. Now, for us, that's quite a difficult charge to take on board. Schools are funded through Ministry of Education grants, and Ministry of Education grants don't cover individual wastewater charges per school, per area. So you get a set fee, that's just what it is. If your council does something different, well, you've got to raise funds somewhere else. Unfortunately for us, we're in a situation where South Wairarapa District Council has what's known as a pan tax in many areas. So what is it that we're looking for? Well, we think there's an opportunity for the council to recognise the positive impact that schools, education facilities give to the community, and the limited funding options they have, and the opportunity cost of that funding, and where it can go elsewhere. And by providing a remissions, I suppose, clause for wastewater charges for education, specifically for school facilities. I guess that would be up for the council to determine what that would ultimately cost for them. There's around, sorry, I had this up before. There's 8 schools in South Wairarapa District Council. I'm not sure exactly how many toilets there are in total. But what we face in South Wairarapa, we've got 233, sorry, Maribor School, we've got 233 students. All of those students live in South Wairarapa. When they go to the toilet, they do it either at home or at school. The impact on the network isn't increased like it is when the tourist comes into the area. So when those kids don't go to school anymore, they're at home. So either way, the impact on the actual service is negligible. I'm sure there'll be a small amount of water extra because of the fact that the toilets are there. We don't actually use all the 27 toilets. We've got a number of classrooms that are actually empty at the moment. At the last meeting, we had a discussion around the fact that if we don't use them in a certain amount of time, we may have to get rid of them, which will be at our cost. And that's because of declining roll numbers. It's pretty steady at the moment, but we don't see massive growth. There's no houses being built in Maribor, so we face the option of no growth. So we're looking for a specific remissions policy for schools on wastewater. And we basically, what that $30,000 for the school does would pay one full-time teacher aide. That's pretty useful. Modernising teaching tools, books, digital learning, all these things that we could put in towards education. It's very useful for the students. On the board 2 years ago, we decided to use some of our funds that we had in reserve to fund an extra teacher so we can make class sizes smaller. As an opportunity to have better educational outcomes for our kids. It was a really good result. Unfortunately, we went through those reserves pretty quick and we've had to resort back to the normal class. So something like this, we would be able to do these sort of opportunities. So we're not asking for money, we're asking you don't charge us as much money. And I would leave that open for questions from there.
Thank you for your very concise and speedy presentation. Any questions from committee members?
Just-
Start with Councillor Old.
Sorry, Dylan, I just have a question for our chief executive, because I just want some clarity around what schools pay in terms of rate. I don't believe they pay rates at all, do they not, or do they?
They don't pay rates in quite the same way for general rates. I think schools are exempt from general rates, but they do get charged for services, so water and wastewater.
Well, water and wastewater. Yeah, okay, yeah, thanks. I just, yeah.
Okay.
I'm breaking the rules, but it's not really a question, but I just want to congratulate you on a very good paper and a very good argument. Thank you very much.
I'll allow one breaking of the rules.
Thank you.
Further questions for Dylan? Purely out of interest, how many classrooms are you in there for toilets you currently?
I think it was, I think it was 2 educational spaces, so one in the classroom, and what they would do is they'd probably get rid of the one that is the easiest to get rid of. So there is a mobile youth classroom that's kind of 1.5. If we didn't start utilising it in an educational way. I mean, we get funding for educational spaces. Anything else is things like Round the Vines, which is awesome. A lot of communities don't have that. But it all goes towards things. So we can do sports facilities, things like that, but we try not to pay teachers out of fundraising. We shouldn't be doing that. We should be doing it from the operational grant we get from councils, but we're using operational grant money for rates. And so, yeah, it's a lost opportunity.
Thank you for being so clear. and thank you for your time this morning.
Thanks very much, Dawn.
That brings us to our last presenter for this particular section of the morning. Michael, please join us at the front.
Pages for Michael's.
Page number is 241 at committee 4. Thank you for your time, Michael. As per everyone else, you have 10 minutes this morning, and if you can, please leave us some time for questions. Amy will raise her hand to indicate that you are at the 9-minute mark when you're ready.
Pretty quick. Pretty much just a general overview of where I'd like to see us go for the 10 years. I understand that what I'm looking for is essentially somebody would have to get in there and champion it, or I'm going to have to join the council myself. But I would like to see, obviously, we're fixing a lot of the problems that we have with our roading, with our water, with our sewage. And I'd like to continue to grow that. I grew up in a trade orientation. I grew up in a trade school. I did competitions with World Skills, Skills Canada, things of that nature. And I know how important it is to grow our young people and build them into those skills that actually take care of, build and maintain and continue to grow. I understand that a lot of communities are moving away from having municipal or district services that actually manage things. But I think that for us, we could start to build back. We could start to grow. We could start out small, work with the Ministry of Education, work with UCOL, and actually have specific training for building roading staff, building staff that take care of our water resources and our sewage resources, train within our community and employ from within our community, and build that way to move forward over the next 10 years. I'd still like to see community investment, and I think if we go forward with this and start building small district groups, start out with things like filling potholes, line marking, train people for our own STMS. I'm not saying that we're going to jump in straight off the shot, purchase $10 million worth of equipment. We'll still need to use Fulton Home. We'll still need to use other contractors for large scale operations that we don't have the capabilities for. But I think over the next 10 years, that's what I'd like to see. And when you guys do think about and move forward and vote on things like that, I'd like to see tangible things. I'd like to see results-driven decisions. I'd like to see us focus on the basics and get things right first time, actually hit our targets. I want us to see, I want us to be able to hit the goals and the budget targets that we set, and I want us to stay on track, So that's what I'd like to see. I think it allows us to retain control and say in our community and what's happening, as opposed to moving to a larger scale and working with larger contracts that maybe we don't actually get as much control with what we're doing. And I think we might get a little bit faster response, and people might feel a little bit more included in the community when their brother or sister works for, the district council services. So I've seen some amazing presentations earlier today. And really what I wanted to do is just come in, put my voice down. I know that, not everybody looks forward to seeing me at these council meetings, and I'm sorry for some of my behavior in the past, but I really would like to work with you guys moving forward and focus on those things and getting them right and doing them properly the first time, because that's how I was trained and that's how I was brought up. So I'll keep it short with that and just keep that in mind when you guys vote on your decisions in the future.
Fabulous. Thank you, Councillor Old. And then any other questions for Michael? Please?
I just have one quick question for Michael. I'm not sure if you're aware of the Local Government Act that we as councils, for instance, work under the auspice of and the regulatory environment that we're constrained within. And I think it'd be really beneficial if you were to perhaps have a look at the Local Government Act and
yes, I have read it, and I do understand. I want to keep it short. I understand the constraints that you guys are under. I understand that there's a lot of legislation and things that keeps you guys in a certain direction. And I understand that Nationals brought down the new water group units coming together with the large districts and stuff like that. My fear is that it's going to happen where maybe RSA where we don't want fluoridated water comes through and we don't get to have as much of a voice. You know, and it will require us to maybe take back some of the legislation and take back some of the control into our own community. And I understand it's a juggernaut, you know. I don't want to go deeper into the belly of the beast, and I respect you guys for having to come in and work within the constraints of the council that you have. But yes, I have read through, I've read through the entirety of the document.
Thanks, Michael. Tam.
Councillor Maynard.
Mike, I've actually, I went through yours and thank you very much for everything that you put down, because so my understanding is that you're wanting to look at council just getting back to actually bringing infrastructure and those types of workings back in-house that have been contracted out. Have I got that right?
Yeah, and I understand that, you know, like the ladies from the Cobblestone came in earlier and the ladies from the Dark Sky Initiative. And I understand that you guys have a choice to make between funding these, you know, very deserving organizations or moving money towards, you guys have to pay for multiple things. You can't just only pay for one. And I understand what you guys have to deal with, and it's very difficult.
No, and just as an aside, look, I have appreciated every single time that you've come in. We need to hear voices from within our district of things that we may not have oversight, because it is a very large district and it's not easy for us to travel every single road within our district. So I've appreciated every time that you've come in and spoken, and I'd hate to see you stop that for sure. Yeah. And if you feel like you need to run, you run.
Yeah, well, and I understand the amount of work that you guys have. I understand the amount of paperwork that you have to go through. I struggle to keep up. Drives my wife nuts when she gets home. I've been on the computer for 5 hours and I got 7 different screens open. I never had a working email before when I joined the school board in January. So
Final question from Councillor Plummer.
Can I just, you've written in your submission on question 12, that's the one about the 10-kilometre zone, and you've written your answer, continue with the current funding approach where everyone pays the same regardless of where they live. That's not the situation now. We have rural and urban. And
I don't remember the question that you said.
okay, the question was, question is, do you agree with expanding the rating base to 10 kilometres outside of the town for?
So if you live in town.
If you live in town,
Yeah.
you pay a rate. If you live in a rural area outside of town, it's a different ratio.
Different.
We're suggesting expanding the town limit
Yeah,
to 10 kilometres outside of the town.
yeah.
You've said, no, you don't agree with that.
I said no, that I don't agree with
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Right. I just wanted to make sure you understood what you were saying. So, and you understood that there was a difference between rural and urban rates currently.
Yes,
So you're comfortable with that.
I'm comfortable with the rates the way that they are now.
Okay.
Like I said, I wasn't 100% up to date on all the questions that were on there. I was more towards moving towards and
Yeah,
getting.
no, I just wanted to make sure you understood the question. Or
So
Didn't
essentially
strike-
what I said is the rating is where it is now. You guys want to expand. I've said, don't expand it. Include that extra 10 kilometers outside
Okay.
of the urban areas.
The reason I asked, didn't sort of stick with what you've presented to us in the past.
Okay, so what you're saying is if I'm wishing to expand on the roading, then you would think that my suggestion would be to expand it so that more people outside that 10 kilometers are helping for the roading, because urban roading is more expensive.
No, it's about how we split the pie, and we were just suggesting that people that live within the 10 kilometres of the town probably use the town services more and have the opportunity to use the services more than somebody who might live out the coast, for example.
Okay, so you're saying that include them in the town services?
Yeah.
Or the roading?
The town services.
Okay, so I would say that now that you've explained it to me, I would agree that people that live closer to town should pay more services. But I also understand that people that are just outside the town, that's also going to add more to their actual cost of living as well. It's not going to affect me as much. So if it does for you, maybe that's something that we take into account. But yeah, like I said,
It does, I'm right on the 10 kilometres.
But he's
I just wanted to make sure you understood the question. That's all.
Thank you very much for your time this morning, Michael. Thanks for continuing to come and speak.
Yes, please. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Just before we collectively move on to our next section of presenters, just a reminder for committee members, question time is exactly that. It's for questions of points of clarification for the presentations. It's not for showing our own agreement or disagreement with the presentation. And we don't need to debate people's other
Yeah. They've written them.
in the submission. So with that said, we will move on to Featherston Community Centre Charitable Trust, and Jay Jetson is going to be presenting this morning. So for the benefit of those who are presenting in this next section, everybody has 10 minutes to present. We do ask that you take your submission as read, and you can add extra to what you've already presented in writing. We ask that you present for maybe 5 or 6 minutes and allow time for questions at the end from the committee. And Amy will raise her hand when we get to 9 minutes to indicate that we are coming to the end of your time. So when you're ready.
Thank you very much. So when we were sitting back earlier this year, we, as a board, realised that we wouldn't be very good at getting on people's radar. And what I mean by that is we'd like to build a stronger relationship with the council. Some of our key outputs as a centre, we were very surprised ourselves to find that we're a key information and community hub. We make a big difference in the Featherston community, delivering over 1,000 activities per year, being one of those key outputs. Darren, have you?
Yeah, so I'm Darren Whitten, Jay's colleague on the trust. So I think the point that that radar thing is quite critical, because when you look at what we actually do, it's surprising in scale. So we act as a very much multiple information channels. So we maintain most of the websites in Featherston, the Busy Engine, Featherston Info. We also picked up and maintain the Phoenix magazine, which goes out to about 3,500 households. In terms of the activities in the presentation, you would have seen how we split those out by a range of categories. We'd never done that before. If we've been in the public service, you do it all the time, the whole team counted. But what surprised us is we support about 1,000 activities a year, ranging in scale from about 5 to 25 people. And the other thing, and this is particularly credit to Jay, is we've tried to serve as an umbrella to reduce the startup risks and costs to both volunteer organisations, new businesses, and other voluntary exercises. One of the Jay will talk about in a moment. In our strategy, we want to actually act as a hub for other volunteer organisations. So, for instance, the Butt Road Campaign work, the Climbing Wall, the Lemon Ball, new business startups. So that's been a real focus of the centre. And I think the point that we wanted to convey back to that radar thing is this is a social hub that provides a lot of capacity in the Featherston community.
Yeah. So how do we do it? Well, our operating model is very, very lean. We have 2 key exposures, being the OPEX grants, so salaries going out, and the running costs of the centre. There is a gap there, and then CapEx grants, maintaining the building, all of those costs. We're finding that there's always a gap we've got to fill, and sometimes that's really hard to do. Yeah, we're not, as a board, we're not sitting back and saying we're going to accept that, because we've got to do something about it. We have too much output to really sit back and do nothing. So we are proactively thinking of ways that we can improve that situation going forward, but it's not going to be a short-term fix. It's going to be a long-term solution, and with that comes the time to build that. Do you have any comments on that?
Yeah, so the 2 gaps, my heavy engineer, I was saying to Jay in the car over here, everybody will tell you about leads, and your lead cycle and so on. basically the centre runs about 100,000 a year. We're very good at raising the money. But as anybody who knows that raises money, it's always a random walk. And the two areas that we have challenges, one is as the board is, if you look at the centre over the last 5 years, it's really developed. So we've got a pretty active asset management plan. And when you do that, as you would know in your own context, you suddenly realise that you need to be provisioning things for 5, 10, 20 years out. And we know there are gaps coming up. We've been very fortunate to raise grants for those in the past, and that's some that's seen as acceptable. And one of the things that we want to do is actually how do we expand the funding base to actually make that more sustainable and at least exposed to good luck or good representation. And I think in terms of that strategy piece that Jay was referring to, is we're trying to do three things. One is what we've realised a lot of the users of the centre are not, it's a bit like the 10-kilometre discussion earlier piece, is a lot of the users come from throughout the South Wairarapa. There are very few places, which is surprising, that have that level of activity that people have interest in. I mean, I find it a bit, I shouldn't say odd, but people come for Scrabble, things like that. But there's a huge range. So we've extended the focus of the centre to be the South Wairarapa rather than Featherston. A lot of people treat the centre, particularly given its partnership with the medical centre, as a wellness or social hub. And we've supported that as much as we can. And the third thing we've looked at, as Jace was referring to, is you step back and go, how can we make sure this is sustainable? Because it's a piece of gold. How do you make sure the community doesn't lose that?
So we have set up a subcommittee to focus on just that, and we meet regularly to explore how we're going to put those strategies in place. But as I said before, in the short term, that doesn't help that gap that we have in both OPEX and CAPEX. So for us, I guess we just want to build a stronger relationship with you, given the big impact that we make in the Featherston community and the communities around Featherston. Firstly, recognising that impact that we make, and then ideally working with us and supporting us so that we can continue to do that and do it better than we are now.
And the way we looked at that, very helpful us to look at that, is there's some key things the council put in kind. Things like the walkway between Fitzgerald Street and the centre. At the moment, it's almost an 800-metre walk, out of the centre, down
Mauritius
Road and it's the land's available. It would make a huge degree of improvement in the utility and usability for both the medical centre and the centre. And the second piece, and this is not an ask, is as Jay said, we haven't been on your radar. We're only one of 2 community centres in New Zealand that aren't directly supported by their councils. We're not looking for support. We think that there's a huge amount of volunteer vibrancy and energy generated with the current model, but it's recognising that it is there and what it delivers, and in time thinking about within your constraints how you may be able to support the centre over within its CAPEX gap or its OPEX gap. It's more, as Jay put it, a recognition issue, not a dependency or an others. And we think we should be on the plan as something that should be in the foreground of your thinking.
Questions? Fantastic. Councillor Old.
Cool. Thanks very much for coming along and presenting, and trust me, Featherston Community Centre is not off council's radar, it's constantly there. Just a quick question in terms of revenue you currently would be receiving, not just with the people that make use of your facility, but also the car park for the medical centre. Do you get revenue for that at all, or is it? Yeah, so
it's at a piece rate. So what I mean by that is effectively the medical centre pay for I think it's car parks a year.
Right.
I mean, effectively, anybody who goes to the medical centre would know they'll use anywhere on a day between 20 to 25 car parks.
Sure.
But we saw that very much as a public good. The medical centres, we're good for the medical centre and the medical centre is good for.
Yep, no, excellent, thank you.
We've talked a lot about improving the relationship between the community centre and SWDC. Do you have any immediate ideas on where that could start or how that could happen?
I think the key is what we've realised, a lot of that's in our own court. So one of the things, for instance, we intend to do, as Jane mentioned about, we haven't told the community what outputs the centre produces. I mean, I know I don't want to be a bureaucrat about it, but we haven't. And when you do a stock take off of them, you realise it doesn't work. Some of our board members didn't realise that we maintained all the community information channels. So, and that's been part of our philosophy, is actually how do we provide capacity to maintain things? Because there's too many things happening without viable capacity. And so we've been sort of like, over time, picking things up and umbrellaing its employment.
Fantastic. No, that's great. That is your 10 minutes. And we do thank you for your time and for your presentation and for the work that you're doing.
Thank you.
Wider community.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys.
That moves us to an online presentation from Alistair and Jenny. They are piece number 386, pack 47.
Good morning.
Morning, Jenny.
How are
Jenny,
you?
good.
Are you ready for me to go?
Yes, thank you. Hear all of my spiel earlier about 10 minutes and leaving us time.
Yes.
Yep. Fantastic. When you're ready, Jenny.
Cool, thank you. Thank you for taking the time to read the submissions. The points I'd like to make, it was great to see so many people making submissions on the plan. Good work from the grassroots movement shows that the people are interested and concerned, with a number of them experiencing job losses in the last year. At a meeting last week at Ruakaka Hall, the WINS rep advised there are between 2,000 to 3,000 on job seeker books. That's huge, with the South Wairarapa having a high percentage of job losses in the capital. And these are your ratepayers that are suffering. My points are the SUIPs are not new, and concerned that this is becoming a new revenue stream, when in fact they're already included in the rating methodology on collecting on capital value instead of land value. I fully support Michelle from Greyfriars Motel and other commercial entities for opposing your collecting per room. Clearly it's an unintended consequence, and urge you to accept her solution. For the rest of us, effectively every ancillary building that has a kitchen sink is now expected to contribute to this rate, even if you're not supplying any core services to, nor maintenance from that connection, i.e. sewage, water and wastewater. My solution, if you're not prepared to exclude this for rural properties, then we would like to suggest that you follow Greater Wellington's example and charge full price for the first dwelling and half for the next one or more, as per the Opa-Awi Awhia catchment scheme rating methodology. And that's our submission.
Gosh, you
Awesome, we've got 8 minutes to ask questions.
I know.
Questions for Jenny from the.
I'm still trying to absorb what she was saying. Yes,
Sorry.
100 mile an hour, Jenny.
Oh, sorry, I could slow down a bit for you. It's the SUIPs. I mean, you're charging the revenue collector, and it's just not working. You're making everyone cross.
So just to be clear, I know you are referring to SUIPs as a revenue collector, but they are SUIPs don't increase council's overall revenue. They just redistribute the total rates take, I guess, more heavily to those who have more than one dwelling on their property. So just to clarify that point, SUIPs don't increase our revenue overall.
It effectively becomes a targeted rate though, doesn't it? So.
Sorry. Councillor Maynard, is that your hand up?
It does indeed, yeah. So Jenny, I'm just having a look here. Are you saying that you do not support the 10K radius and to keep it as it is?
The
strict service rate, you don't support that. So you just say just to leave that as option 2 for that one. I'm sorry, it just wasn't quite clear because it's
well, I don't like having options. So you're now saying that we've got to have option 1 or 2, or you can't have an alternative.
Oh, no, we can, but I just, I'm just reading through yours and I just couldn't
Yeah.
quite make out where you were sitting with that. So thank you.
Any other questions for Jenny this morning? No, it seems you've done such a good job of presenting.
Thank you, no worries.
That we questions for you today, Jenny.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jenny.
Thank you very much for your time.
Okay.
Cheers.
Borough Community Board and
Just have a stretch.
we had two presentations.
No, I just want to stretch.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
don't want to break
You,
this.
you just stand. It's okay. You stand and have a stretch. Just do that sometimes.
Yeah, I agree. You've got to do that, Storm. Yeah.
I think everyone should do it.
It must be ours, wrong, this or something.
All day.
We start our time.
Yes.
Angela's presenting some stuff and I'm presenting some stuff at the end. All together.
It's
That's all 7 minutes.
And it's with regards to the community board.
Separate, which will be very, very.
But is it from the community board?
it's from the community.
It's all community board. So, yeah.
It's page 403 and 49.
Sorry, that just sounded like it was two separate.
No, it says continuous, it's just, yeah.
Wonderful.
Okay, so, a document was submitted to, for consideration element here as part of the long-term plan, and we really did appreciate having the opportunity to do it in advance of the, before everything else got started. So the message we get from our community is limit spending, focus on the basics, particularly infrastructure. We ask the council to consider a more community-led approach where appropriate and ensure fair and equal spending across our district. Community-led, just to be clear there, does not mean the community have an idea and then come to council with a handout for you to fund it. There is an over-reliance on council-managed funds from some organisations. This is public money either from our rates or our taxes. Martin Brook Community Board priorities, they're not new or non-essentials, and some of these have been addressed, so I'll be really brief with them. So getting a step, so it's always on our agenda here. So as governors of the estate, our priority remains that the trust is recognised as an independent entity, focusing without conflict on the best interest of the precious asset generously gifted by George Penn. And if you choose the estate will then be determined without bias and conflict. Wastewater, and of course this is again being addressed at the moment, continues to be a matter of urgency just because of the impact it's had on our community and the growth. Emergency preparedness, we need to ensure we've got sufficient resource and funding for preparing for emergency events. It includes at a community level promotion of our community hubs and emergency assistance centres. Water tanks and generators need to be available at all our emergency facilities. Need to move beyond disaster, what our recovery programmes would be, what would be in place should the worst scenarios happen. Part of resilience is our Wahinga Bridge, and we know council don't own our bridge, but we would ask for support to prepare a case that keeps putting it in front of NZTA to consider for more funding. Road and again, this is something I know has just been on your agenda. The intersection of Princes Street and State Highway 53 continues to be of a high community concern because of the number of accidents that do occur. And further along Princes Street with our new popular community funded pump track, we're looking at just checking the safety there for children crossing the roads in front of the trucks, and obviously a lot more traffic happening now. Implementing the speed management plan would address some of the safety issues. Current legislation, as you all know, requires reconsultation on this. If we do need to do reconsult, can we please move with it as quickly as possible? Developing cycling and walking trails between our wineries has been promoted for many years. It's a much safer way of travelling around and has been scoped in the 5 town trails plan. We look to see whether any of that can actually be implemented at some stage. Public access and safety. We continue to ask for improvements to footpaths and crossings, ensuring they're suitable for all our users, and a schedule of planned work made publicly available. Parks and reserves and the appearance of town. Again, it's not new and it's on your agenda. Constantine Memorial Park, we're just looking at keeping the updated development plans so we can work out a budget for improvement. and also look at ongoing schedule for our tree maintenance. The Waheng playground here, very, very popular. We have had multiple requests for it to be fenced off for our younger children, especially where the secondary busy road is. And in general, the appearance of our township has been described as a little bit scruffy, cared for, especially when you come into town. So there's no doubt there's been, lots of like us to do these things. And, we thank you guys for all that you do. But ratepayers are then asked to make decisions on a narrow range of topics that have been selected and provided with sometimes limited information and context. And a great deal of discussion takes place behind closed doors. Council workshops should be open to the public, and where this is not possible, information presented at closed workshops should be made available, excluding only those parts containing sensitive information. Here, it's just to give the takers on the journey, just so people understand all the topics that are covered off, because it looks like, you may give them a very limited choice, but we know you've done so much more work than what this document actually showed you. So on the topic of closed workshops and publicly excluded council meetings, I've just got a few quick quotes here from the Ombudsman. Conducting a great deal of council business behind closed doors can have a damaging effect on how the community perceives a council to be. It's crucial to conduct business in an open and transparent manner. Again, it's the Ombudsman's words on mine. I understand the need for information sharing and discussion, but I feel workshops often take it beyond that and reduce the ability for the public to have input on issues until it's too late. Closed shop workshops are used to provide training or background to elected members on complex issues to ensure elected members are equipped to make robust decisions and facilitate better decision making. However, it is equally beneficial to allow the public access to the same information so they too can understand the eventual decisions. Another reason is a closed safe space to ask silly questions. Councillors are elected to public office, a position that demands accountability. They should be prepared for a level of scrutiny and even reasonable criticism from those they represent. The questions and concerns councillors have are no doubt shared by members of the community. It may be valuable for the answers to silly questions to be heard by the public. And in summary, this is not to say that no good reason exists to close workshops, only that the Ombudsman does not consider controversy, complexity, or the potential for embarrassment to be good reasons in themselves. Difficult or contentious issues are often the ones that warrant the greatest level of transparency. The determination to close a workshop should always be made on what best serves the public interest. So again, really in simple terms, it's take us on the journey, help us get involved in that so that we can actually really help understand how we reach the decision that you've reached.
So I've got two comments and a question. So the first comment is, I believe facing us, water situation is our biggest issue facing this whole district. And we need to get on with it. I'll just ask to that, we were going to be the sludging ponds here. I wonder why that hasn't already happened. A simple thing to be done. It should have been done years ago, but it hasn't. That's the question I asked. The second comment I have is, when we came into this triennium, we quickly learned that the Martinborough community favours town hall meetings. And we have expressed this to council on a number of occasions that this is the best way to get dialogue. And I thought it would be the best way to get consultation underway. We believe if we do have town hall meetings, people like to attend those because they get the opinions of others while they're there to help form their ideas and what they support. I believe we can control any rowdy elements in those sorts of environments, which may be a prohibitive factor. But I do think we need to consider those as being one of our key instruments of consultation. So that's my statements. I have a question, and you can tell me to go away and think about it. The question is, I'm just looking at the input that have come across, and I looked at the data and saw there was 600 form questions. Now, I assume form questions to be the things that like the Taxpayers Union put up. They give a statement and then you sign your name to it and send it off, and everybody does the same thing. Is that what we call the form question?
I believe so.
Okay. So I see in that bundle, there are 600 form questions. I just wanted to know, are those submissions being treated the same as any other submission, or are they being treated differently?
So ordinarily, we don't respond to questions and know that this isn't a conversation, but all submissions are treated equally and will be considered as part of the deliberations normally in the weeks to come.
Thank you for that. That was, I'm sorry if I asked the wrong question, I should have, but it was it was just something that was staring at me at the database, and I thought, well, maybe I should ask the question.
Do you have any questions for the Unbarrow Community Board representatives this morning?
Thanks, guys.
Were we that good?
Yeah,
The hallway.
there was a couple of comments, but it's not the time for comments. It's, yeah.
Yeah, we treat all.
Yeah,
equally.
absolutely, absolutely.
Wait, we will take the next presentation and then yours, just to keep the definition between yours and.
Very good.
Okay. So that brings us to the Wairawaka Five Towns Trail Trust presentation from Greg, and that is page 420, pack 63.
60, is it?
63.
Okay, so everyone, thank you very much for inviting us to speak to our submission, and also thank you for the work that you already do on trails and keeping the networks up. For those who don't know me, I'm Greg Lang, and I'm the chair of the Wairarapa Five Towns Trail Trust. Principally here just to answer questions. You've all read the submission, but just in a very brief summary. The Wairarapa Five Towns Trail Trust is set up to deliver the Five Towns Trail Network. It could possibly be the biggest social and economic game changer Wairarapa is going to see. It's a $47 million project over the next 10 years to deliver 200 kilometres of off-road cycle trails linking the Wairarapa Five Towns Trails, the Wairarapa Five Towns up, and also connecting with the Rimutaka Cycle Trail, which will link up with Wellington CBD. Currently, the Trust is working on numerous projects. One of them is a $150,000 design project for a bridge over the Waiahine River. And it's possibly going to be the largest suspension bridge in New Zealand. And it'd be a real statement saying that, come to the Wairarapa. And we also picked up the Wairarapa Moana Trail assessment work that was done through FAB-FEBI, which is a 7.24 kilometre trail linking Featherston to Lake Domain. And the big thing we've got coming up next month is on the 22nd, we're hosting stakeholders and project funders. So we're bringing a whole lot of national funders to the Wairarapa. We're showing them the network, where it's at and what we want to achieve. And involving our stakeholders as well. So we're building those relationships at the moment, and we've had funding through Wellington NZ to help us establish this funding base. Also, our website goes live on the 22nd, and we're bringing Diane Drummond, who's the CEO of Hauraki Trails Trust, down to speak to stakeholders and funders. A very successful network, and brings about $18 million a year into the Hauraki district. So you get towns like Paeroa, like that have gains. But the trails principally are to connect our towns. It's for economic benefit, but also for our residents and ratepayers. So what we're basically asking is that you keep supporting the trail network like you do. It'd be great for you to appoint a trustee to our trust. We're facilitating the setup for a trustee to be appointed from the district councils. And to revisit what we asked you last year, which you agreed to, but declined it in the end because not all councils came on board. It's a $20,000 operational funding for each year for the next 2 years. Parliament is supporting this, and Marsden to decline. So just out of interest, through our economic impact work that we've done, it's averaged out that the average local user of a trail will spend $30, and a New Zealand visitor from somewhere else in New Zealand will spend $170 a day, and an international visitor $280 a day. And already the bridge over the Te Hariniko River, the last year has had 40,000 trips over. So, and that's
amazing. Just amazing. There's no question.
But now I've been sitting where you guys have, and I know what it's like at long-term plan time. It's not easy. I don't envy you at all, but we would love your support, and we can see this being a real real difference for the Wairarapa. It connects in with the dark skies, it connects up with telling our stories and just creating those opportunities for sustained economic and social activity. But yeah, happy to answer questions.
Fantastic, thanks, Greg. Councillor Maynard.
Can I, thank you so much for presenting there, Greg, and actually it's been really good having a look at this. Like, in my little heart of hearts, I wish we had some more information from 2024 on here, because it stops at 2023. So, you know, I was thinking, oh, what not happened last year? But that's what happened last year. So that's fantastic to hear about the Tauwhareneke Bridge, and being able to still plot from there is great. I'm just curious though, you said that Carterton District Council suggested that was the funding for 20,000. Is that correct?
Yes.
So, and that was going to all three councils, 20 per council, or was it 20,000 from the councils?
20,000 per council.
Per council. Thank you.
And our focus is on Carterton District and South Wairarapa District at the moment. That's where the main work is.
Thank you.
We'll go Councillor Woodcock and then Councillor Old.
Yeah, great, thanks, Greg. Just curious that the Waihangi Bridge, whereabouts are they looking to locate that along the river?
The design is for the Periferi Street going to River Road at Mount. So it's 165 metres long. It has towers that are massive. And that's where the real impact can be through, we're doing a cultural impact work at the moment and working with Hapu and iwi associated with that area, and real opportunities to tell that story of Ngāti Ko Periferi. Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Old.
Thanks, Greg. Thanks very much for coming along, and really appreciate the work that Five Towns Trails have done over the last decade, really, in my involvement. Just a quick, you mentioned about picking up the Wairarapa Minor Trail from Featherston down to Lake Reserve, and obviously picking up on the feasibility study that was done by Fab Feathy in those days. Have you located a person in that area, for instance, who will champion that and get it going forward, apart from the Greytown?
Yeah, well, that's the big role of our Five Towns Trail Trust is to work with other groups and give them the tools that they need.
Yep.
And there is a Wairarapa Minor Trust set up.
Yep.
But they need to be invigorated, and that's where we're going to. That's where our next step will be.
Okay.
And get them about. It's not a hard trail to do.
No.
It's only 7 kilometres, and a lot of the pre-work has been done.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks, Greg.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, Greg, thanks. Where's Masterton sitting on this funding at this stage, do you know?
In a few words, Masterton has no missions.
No, that's
oh, Jeff. No, I mean,
it's fine. But yeah, does that change? Does that change anything in the working of the trust in terms of how this is? Because this has always been a
5 towns, but in this current triennium, no. We're still working towards connecting Masterton. For example, we've basically got the trail worked out going to the CBD and onto Clearville. And I've had discussions with the industrial estate and also some property owners to get it there, but we're going to get it bridge across the river as well there. So that will happen, but our priority at the moment is down this end of the.
Is your operating budget still 120,000 per annum?
Yes. Yeah.
So how are you going to fund that without Masterton's 20,000?
So what we have to do first, any funding, is make sure that we've really tried the councils first. So we've got a couple of other options as well. After we've heard back from this, your delivery of your long-term plan. Yeah.
Okay. So I get it in my mind. Are you saying that if we support the $20,000, that makes your interest from other parties also more likely to support you?
It certainly will. Yes, it will. But at the same time, if you don't support us, we just know where we stand and we know what our shortfall is, and that can approach them as well. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
You know, the only funding is from local government and local trusts is for operational funding. Project funding is all from outside the region predominantly.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Thanks, Greg.
10 seconds left, so.
Okay.
Did you say it was 200 kilometres that will up to, was that what it was?
Yes.
So is the bulk of that off, away from the roads, or is it going to be interfering with road traffic and?
The whole network will be off the road.
Yep.
But as it gets developed, there will be still on-road sections and eventually they'll get eliminated. So it's basically connecting the 5 towns, but with experience loops. So you'd have like the Wallana Trail, you would have a loop out to Gladstone, little things like that. So it's offering locals and visitors day experience as well as, 3 or 4 days. Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you very much for your time. Maria, thank you for a very comprehensive presentation. Thank you.
No, thank you. Thank you for having us. And,
Great. Cheers, matey.
Thank you. Storm, wrap us up for this section.
Do I need to change my jersey inside out?
Would be appreciated, costume change.
Just, you asked that.
Is that guy? Is that guy?
Boxing games.
This will be very brief. So the first thing is to talk about, one of the things I came when I first moved to Martinborough was negotiating and talking with people. And it's going back to the question I said about town hall meetings. I've met with individuals, I've met with groups. Everyone's expressing the need to have the town hall meetings here because they appreciate the inputs that people get, that give them other ideas that may be wider spreading of the. It's something that I would like the council to think about. Even if you don't do it under official consultations, do it under interest groups to get them involved. And I think once you start having that involvement, you'll start getting a better input from it. That's my statement on that. So I'm going to go. The next thing I do, I have a friend in Auckland, and just before we get, I do have more than one friend. I have a friend in Auckland who is moving to Martinborough. And one of the issues he had, he's got a wife with health issues, and he would have liked to have built his home in Martinborough. Now, we go back a long way. When we lived in Wellington, we came to Martinborough and enjoyed the facilities here. So that was one of the drivers to get him here. But unfortunately, under the current circumstances, he can't buy any land, he can't build a house because it's just not possible. So what he had to do was find another house. And I'm just sort of saying this goes back to reflecting on our current situation with our water and our wastewater problems, that we do need to put some urgency into them to get them resolved quickly. And I just ask the council, please, can we make sure we'll put this in a priority of our 10-year plan and make sure that we move it quickly to get some things resolved?
Question from Councillor Plymouth.
I'm always nice. Yeah, just from what you just said, I'm struggling to understand on your submission.
Yes.
Your option 2 for water.
Yes, I know. There wasn't much options in there to do other than what you did.
Well, there's option 3 and 4, which is greater spending. So from what you've just said and from
what I'm trying to say to that is I don't like to look at
How come he keeps?
money has to be taken to spend on it. Maybe instead of expanding the budget, take it from somewhere else. I would provide, yes, maybe our water is more important than some of our roading. So maybe the budget could be taken there. I know that's a difficult thing, but it's what you have to do in practical terms to address the issue.
Bearing in mind that the options are for operational spending on capital.
And he has answered that, so I don't know why you keep querying people who come to boards.
Yeah, no, thanks, Storm. I see you're very much in favour of town hall meetings, public meetings, and I just want to drill down a little bit on the detail on specifics. You're saying that we should have them for specific things like long-term plan consultation, annual plan. And I take it you've experienced town hall meetings in the past.
I have. Look, when I first came here, they did have town hall meetings. And I know a couple of them got a bit unruly, and I can understand that, but you can control that input.
No.
Like mediator. And you have a mediator that controls the circumstance. So if somebody's getting out of hand, you say, that's not what we're talking about. And that's, I understand that's probably one of the critical factors that you face as a council. You don't want to stand up and get abused for any reason. And there are some elements that do that, but they can be moved aside because the general consensus is, I like to listen to his opinion and his opinion, their opinion. I take from that what is a consensus, and that's what they get from the town hall. Sorry. As I said to you before, maybe for these major consultations, maybe that's not the first step, but maybe if there's an interest group, we would have a town hall meeting for that, to get the response and get the rules and establishment created so that people understand. They're not coming here to bitch and scream at people.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I understand. Thank you for this.
First questions, Storm. He did go to a costume change for us.
Yeah, you did. Yeah. Well done, Storm.
We appreciate you. Thank you, Storm.
Thanks, Storm.
Just before we break, I do believe that, is that Kerry Cameron?
No, it's not period, I don't think.
No,
it's not period.
okay.
No.
No, that's fine. We will go to a break. We are due back at 11:15.
It's a long break.
That's a long break. Oh my God.
I didn't hear what you said, but.
I